WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If you're new, the name of the show is We Should Know. My name is JW Simmons. I'm your host. It's always a pleasure to be with you each and every week. We come to you on Star Communications TV, Channel 16. Also simulcast on WCLN Radio. Different subject, different information. Each and every week we bring that to you. And today we're talking about something that's very near and dear to a lot of folks' heart, and that's our children, what's happening with our children. And sometimes in that, I guess, world is not really seen to a lot of people on a daily basis. The world of, I guess, children's homes come up, foster care, a lot of issues that people don't see. And Joey Leggett is with us. He's the CEO of Falcon's Children's Home. Joey, I was looking at your bio as I was thinking about an introduction and how I wanted to bring that out. You've been a guest here a number of years, and it kind of culminates around the holidays. You're obviously, and a lot of folks know you by name and know about you, but you're the CEO and superintendent of Falcon's Children's Home and Family Services. And this campus is a private Christian school as established. It was that serves students. And one of the things I wanted to point out in that intro, it serves students not only on your campus, but in the surrounding community as well. It's bigger than a lot of people thinks it is. You've been the administrator at 2 nursing homes, ensuring that federal guidelines is met. You served as social worker, probation, and parole officer. And presently, you serve on the board of Benchmarks, which is a child governing association here in North Carolina. Also a member of the North Carolina Health Care Facilities Association, and you previously served on Emmanuel College Board of Trustees and the North Carolina Christian Education Ministries Board. You've been doing this a long time, and somehow it always involves with interaction and connection with children. What you're doing now with Falcon's Children's Home, I want to open with your introduction and a statement. I want to thank you for dedicating your life to the service of your fellow man.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, JW, for having me every year. It really means a lot to me to be able to come here and speak about something that's very dear to my heart, and that is Falcon Children's Home and Family Services. And as you read my bio, I was thinking, wow, I'm really getting old. A lot of things. But, I tell people there's 2 parts of my DNA. Well, 3 parts. The Lord Jesus, of course, but also Falcon. That's the little town I grew up in Clinton. I was in Clinton 20-some years. And this is really where I sort of cut my teeth. I worked with social services here. Mary Margaret Hobbs was my supervisor, and we didn't always agree on everything, but I totally respected her and the job that she did and her love for children of Sampson County. Then I ran Mary Grand Nursing Center here for almost 10, 11 years and worked under George Wilson. And then I was a probation and parole officer for about 5 years here with my dear friend Jimmy Thornton, who's now the sheriff of Sampson County. So I really had a lot of good training, a lot of good upbringing, and my wife is from Clinton. My boys went to Clinton High School. One of them still playing football, and they all played sports at Clinton High School. So Clinton and Falcon are part of my DNA. And then the other part is my faith. I really believe that in these last days, and if we believe we're living these last days, there are so many tumultuous things that are happening to young people and children in general, that Falcon Children's Home is a place that can really make a difference. And when I went there 15 years ago, and again, I was living here in Clinton, was destined to be here the rest of my life, happy to be here. In fact, I had Mitchell as my neighbor out there filming us. And I just thought that's where I would be. And I would work with Mr. Wilson in the nursing home industry and hopefully climb the ladder some other, to a regional position perhaps. But I went to a wedding back in the town of Falcon, and someone said, has the bishop talked to you? And I said, why would the bishop talk to me? I'm not a licensed minister. But he said, well, they realize with your broad experience, and you also know the lay of the land here in Falcon by growing up here, they're mentioning you as a possible candidate of Falcon Children's Home. And so long story short, I applied and got the job. Wasn't sure I wanted the job, but after a while, I just felt like it was something I needed to at least explore. And in the 15 years that I've been there, we've gone from being a residential children's home of just 14 children to we now have 85 children on the campus of Falcon. We've opened up another children's home in the state of South Carolina, Tuberville, South Carolina. We have 30 children there. We received our license as licensed foster homes. We now have 25 foster homes all across the state of North Carolina. We want to have 40 by the spring of this year. We started our own private Christian school because I realized our kids were falling behind in their grades. Because a lot of the kids that come to the children's home have already been to 3 or 4 different schools, because they've gone to 3 or 4 different foster homes, or because of some of the traumatic situations in their life, they got behind on their education. So I realized we needed a school that could just really focus on them and identify where their shortages may be in the educational process and allow them to really focus on getting their education. And then we started a mothers and babies program. We now have 8 mothers and 9 babies in our mothers and babies program. We already had an adoption agency that we're working with. And then our newest ministry happened within this past year. We've had our license about 2 months now, and that is a home for human trafficking, for young girls caught up in human trafficking between the ages of 12 and 21. So I'll say all that to say this: 15 years ago, we've come a long ways, and I couldn't have done some of the things we've done if it wasn't, first of all and foremost, the Lord guiding us, but also the experience I got right here in Sampson County. I still call Sheriff Thornton many times, and Brother Wilson's still a good friend of mine. But all that training and all that experience I got right here in Sampson County helped me make the Falcon Children's Home a success.
There's literally a lot of turbulence in society now. We've seen that. It seems to be intensifying. There seems to be this focus that a lot of people see there if they watch news anymore. I've actually had people come to me and say they've quit looking at the news because it's always it just kind of disturbs them. But there seems to be this kind of unbelievable increase of violence, youth-related violence. And we're talking 15, 14, 16. We're kind of hearing it all the time. Can you kind of help us understand what may be going on? I know you deal with a lot of children that literally don't have a home. But the reality is this part of a core value issue? Is it a family issue? Is it a social, psychological issue? From your perspective, try to give us some understanding of that.
Well, I think it's a combination of all those things you mentioned. 30, 40 years ago, chewing gum in school was considered horrific. Now we've got kids shooting kids in school. So that's how far we've come. The issues that children have many times mimic what society's issues they're having. And as society's had more of issues with drugs and alcohol, vaping now has become a big thing with children. But really, I just think as a whole, society's got a lot more violent. It seems like, you can pull up now and see what accounts from the football games because fights break out. Whether it just be good old competition, you're having fights, or guns are being brought out. We can get into that. Maybe it's video games, or maybe it's the way that violence is presented on television, those other things. But I tend to believe as a whole, our society is in chaos at times. Some of the values and the virtues that we held when we were growing up just are not the same today. It's a whole different generation. And of course, with the overuse of drugs, with alcohol and those sort of things, I don't think parents mean to not be good parents to their children. They get addicted to things, and those addictions take over. But whatever that happens, when they leave those children to fend for themselves, they themselves develop a wall of, they have to have a certain toughness about them or a certain violence tendencies about them at times to be able to feel like they're safe. And I love to see some of these kids come to Falcon that I know have a chip on their shoulder, and sometimes rightfully so. But, it's hard for them to believe that this old middle-aged white man and losing his hair really cares about them, and because they say, you don't understand. But we have to really work through those walls and tear those barriers down. And like I was telling you, we started this home for human trafficking. Who would ever thought about that 20, 30 years ago? But see, but the sexual issues that occur in society now are directly affecting our children. To think that grown adults are using young children to make money off their bodies just irritates the mess out of me. And that's why we want to start this business. So you take those kind of things that are being inflicted upon our young people. They're dealing with things we never dealt with. It'll blow your mind. In fact, there's many times in what I do at Falcon, I will hear about things that have happened in their homes or some of the things they may have done at the children's home, and it would shock you. But I never let those kids see that I'm shocked, because to them that's non-acceptance. They want me to be able to understand where they're coming from. And there's times they may tell me something, and I'm going, and I could try to keep a straight face, try not to show any semblance of me not being approving, because to them that would be, I see you even shot Mr. Leggett. He don't understand. So, but there's times I walk out of the office and I'll go, oh man, I'll just lose it. But I have to pull it back together. But those are kind of things. I think society has just gone so far with some of the things that are going on now. And again, human trafficking is one of those things. I mean, who'd have thought about that years ago? But it goes on right. Fayetteville was one of the largest areas for that, as is Charlotte, as is Myrtle Beach. And we've got 5 girls, and 2 of the first 5 girls we got, one was 12 and one was 13. Someone is out there selling the body of a 12 and 13-year-old girl, but they need help. And I had to go to a seminar in Baltimore, Maryland a few years ago, and I heard a girl get up there and speak, and she had blonde hair and blue eyes. It looked like she was looking directly at me, and she said, I could have been your daughter. I was a cheerleader. I was a president of Student Body Council. I got tricked into this, and this is what happened. And so I said, Lord, if you'll give me a chance, we'll try to do something to fight that epidemic. And so, but back to your question, that's how far society has gone. So a lot of the issues that the kids bring with them are symbolic of what's going on in society.
The balance of that and the ability for us to deal with it in a positive way, I think becomes the challenge. When we look at where we are, folks oftentimes will say to me, I think the one phrase I heard was, we're too far down the rabbit hole to return. And those are issues that sometimes I look at with somebody that does what you do, is you literally at times with your organization, the folks that work with you, really bring people back from that rabbit hole. When we come back from this break, I want to discuss some of those things that these programs that you have going on at the children's home and some of the related programs. We might not think about children and mothers giving birth as part of that, but there's a huge cycle of events, and you touched on a lot of those. If we look at that when we come back, my question is going to be, what do we do as a society? What do we do as faith-based organizations? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Joey Leggett, the CEO of Falcon Children's Home, about things that are affecting your life now, today, and tomorrow.
I am a firefighter.
I'm a mama.
I am a father.
I am a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
I'm a hog farmer.
We are North Carolina Farm Families, and we are your neighbors.
Committed to protecting our natural resources for future generations.
And I'm committed to taking good care of the animals that we raise.
And I'm proud to raise my family on our farm.
And I am proud to live and serve my community in Eastern North Carolina.
We exist to share the truth, educate the public, and protect North Carolina's farm families.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. My name is JW Simmons, your host. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're talking with Joey Leggett, who is the CEO of Falcon's Children's Home. Joey, when I introduced you earlier, I read a little bit about it in your background. I think it's important for folks to know some of those things. The other thing that strikes me, you've been doing, I call it public service work for some years. And the position you're in now, you're seeing it from a different angle. You're seeing some of those issues related to children and just the fact of why they end up in a rest home, why they end up in a foster home environment becomes imperatively important. And I think you did a great job in kind of explaining some of those social, psychological issues that you deal with each day. If you don't mind, I want to kind of circle back on a couple of those things. When you look at those and you recognize what they are, and off camera we mentioned youth violence a little bit, do you see those same things that's happening in society as a large area once you have these people on your campus and you're interacting? Is it the same kind of issues you're dealing with that society is looking at dealing with? Is it pretty much same issues, or are there different issues?
No, there's a lot of breaking down of walls that we have to do when the children get there. Now, again, I say this, it's not the children's fault they're at the children's home. Usually it's the faults of the parents or someone else. Sometimes it's the children's fault because of their behaviors. but for the most part, it's not. And the children love their mom and dad, even though mom and dad may not be doing what they should be doing at that point in time. And so we always tell our staff, don't ever talk negative about any child's mother or father or grandparents or aunt and uncle in front of them. Even though we may know there's things they're doing or not doing to get their children back, that is their mother and their father. Mm-hmm. Don't you ever do that. And the children, many times, will hold on to values that they've learned, sometimes in a chaotic environment, or perhaps gang-related. If they had gangs on their street, we've had kids who come to us who were pretty much running the streets. So they bring that same type of culture to the children's home. And so once that starts, once they get there, we need to start immediately getting them to trust us, to know that we have their best interest at heart, because they're not sure that we do. All they know is they've been taken out of home, maybe by social services, or sometimes by a juvenile justice department or whatever, and brought to Falcon Children's Home. And they see us as the enemy. So we have to let them know, we're not the reason you're here. We didn't bring you here, but we're here to provide a home for you until you can go back home again. It's every child's wish to go back home again. Now, sometimes after they've been at Falcon for a while, they'll start feeling comfortable with us, and then you can say, well, they're not sure they want to go back home again. But most of the time they do, and it's always our hope that the parents will do what they need to do to get them back home again. We're not there trying to take the place. But while they're there, those things that they were involved in, either at home or on the streets, becomes part of our family at Falcon Children's Home. Mm-hmm. For example, this is an old saying, but stitches are for snitches. Mm-hmm. They have a code, because that's the code of gangs and the code of young people in general, is you don't snitch on other children. So if we have something that occurs, we have to do a lot of research to try to figure out what happened, because they will not tell on each other until they get to that point where they realize, hey, Falcon really does want what's best. And you talked about a while ago going down that rabbit hole. Some people say it's gone too far, and it has, but something I've really learned, and this was a principal taught me this when he came to Falcon for our school. Oh, he was rough and gruff. And I told him, Mr. Strickland, I don't know, he wanted kids to wear uniforms. He wanted kids to do this and that. And he said to me, he said, Mr. Leggett, kids really do want standards. They really do want structure. And I thought about that, and I watched as he transformed our school to these kids who were wanting to wear what they wanted to wear, to being rebellious, to all of a sudden they believed in what he was doing. And so the same thing here, these kids have not had structure. They've not had boundaries set. And up to this point, most time in their life has been chaos. That's what they know. So when we start trying to set these boundaries and this structure, they revolt against it to begin with, because to them, that's chaos. Mm-hmm. They're used to chaos. Chaos to them means safety. But it really is. But their life is spiraling out of control. So we have to come back and show them you can have a normal life here. We can get you back to structure, because structure for these kids and guidance to these kids, it means safety. They know if we're going to really enforce certain standards and certain rules, that provides safety, and then they learn to depend upon that rather than the chaos of what they've had to live through. So I think sometimes we feel like life or society has gone so far this way that we can't get back to some of the old values that we have. Mm-hmm. But I would tell you the opposite is true. It just takes a lot of work to get them back to the old values that we grew up with, to say, listen, you don't have to go through life looking over your shoulder. You don't have to go through life living by some gang creed that you've been a part of. You don't have to go through life fearing what mom and dad are going to do or not do. We're going to give you the structure. Get on with your life. Go on to our school. We're going to provide a structure for you. So, yes, it's a hard battle, but it's a battle we're fighting.
One of the challenges too that I often hear from folks, and I guess I see it myself as a father and a grandfather. It's
I don't want to say grandfather.
Yeah, sometimes it's a reality check. But I'm constantly hearing the big challenge. How do you deal with social media platforms? How do you keep children from sliding off that edge, so to speak, either with Facebook, Twitter, and I'll throw that other word out, not really promoting anything here, but TikTok has really gotten really out there. How do you deal with that? Because I think it's important for folks that as they grow to understand the larger world, but some of these platforms are offering a reality that I don't necessarily believe that is a true reality.
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on that point. That is one of the hardest parts of our job. 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have all these things. And now you got to deal with cell phones, TikTok, Facebook. And a lot of our kids, we have to really watch that because they're not allowed to have contact with certain individuals. And they know they can do that through this or go to sites they shouldn't go to. But by the same token, you don't want them to feel like they're not a normal kid. And most normal kids today, social media is what they're all involved in. Right. So it is a very, I was saying a while ago, the battle's worth fighting. And we have meetings continually with me and my staff to say, okay, how do we give them the freedoms they need to feel like they're a normal child? Because normalcy means a lot to our kids.
Because it seems like there's no boundaries on social media.
There is no, well, we do have, we contracted out with Covenant Eyes and other groups out there that can give you some sort of control over that. We can tell where kids are going. Now, we can't always stop them from going there, but we can come back and review this Covenant Eyes report that we have. We have it on all of our computers and most of our social media there. We allow them to have their phones. We allow them to do, none of them get on TikTok that we know of at this point, but they do get on Facebook and other things. But they have to turn their phones in at night while they're sleeping. They don't like that. So, it is a constant battle. So what they do is they'll give us a phone that we know they have, but when they go out shopping, they'll buy another phone and tuck it away somewhere. Wow. So it is a constant battle to do that. The other reason being too is, kids may be trying to get up with people to come help them run away or come help them bring them things they shouldn't have on campus. So, even in your own household, you battle with your own children going to places they shouldn't go with social media and different things, but multiply that by 85 children. So it is a constant battle. And really the thing we're battling with now more than anything is vapes too, because vapes are so easy to hide and they can smoke different things in vape. And I don't know how all that works necessarily, dye pen and those kind of things. But when they come through those doors, though we're not the legal guardian, the county is, or the family that put them there is, we consider ourselves to be legal guardian while they're on that campus. So we have to be just as prevalent about making sure we try to prevent them from going places they shouldn't go, making contact people they shouldn't make contact with, and controlling them vaping. We don't want them vaping. We don't allow vaping on our campus. But those are the things we battle. It's worth the battle.
And I think this is important for folks to know, and because sometimes I get questions on this. Why didn't you ask him so and so? Because you're in a very unique position in that you see this. You are a father with children, so it's not like you're living in isolation and don't know what that means. But these things are critically important. I think that the question is what you alluded to is how do you govern that? What do you say to parents that recognize they don't want them on there and they say, well, you can only get 2 hours or an hour a day with your computer? Is that valid, or is it more valid to say, given the content you're looking at? I mean, if they're looking at things that's going to improve their life, help them understand structure, all of those things that's important for them to be successful, I mean, it seems to me we would want more of that. But I guess that governance piece is critical. Yeah,
you want to make sure that you monitor where they're going, and there are programs out there where you can actually get in and see where they're going and know where they're going, and you could actually tap into their phone. So you may want to invest in some of that. But you also want to give them that little bit of freedom to say, kids are going to be kids, teenagers will be teenagers to a point. You just don't want to get to the point where it's going to be very destructive. And same way we do it here with our, we have what we call house parents. And they are the heroes of Falcon Children's Home. It surely isn't me. It surely isn't the case managers, and they do a wonderful job. It's those house parents who live with those kids around the clock. And we'll have anywhere from 7 to 9 kids on one cottage with 2 house parents. Many times it's a couple. So they're the ones who really get into that a lot. Plus the case managers we have. We have one case manager for every 15 children at Falcon Children's Home, which is like a social worker. So all those working in conjunction together will try to figure out different ways to combat them going to places they shouldn't go. We're just having our own school, but we also have computers for all of our students at our school. So that's where we got the Covenant Eyes. We got Covenant Eyes on the computers they have on the cottages. But the social devices, that's much harder. That's why we say you got to turn your phones in at night. But if I was a parent, I'd look into some of the software out there that allows you to be able to piggyback on where your children are going, because there is so much out there. And our kids, again, going back to society, before they got to us, they were going some awful places they shouldn't be going. So to them, that's natural. So for us to try to tell them you can't do it anymore. Well, mom and dad let me do this, or grandma let me do this, and y'all just don't trust me. It is a battle we're fighting. And I tell our staff all the time, the children will never really appreciate what we do there. It's when they come back as adults later and say, hey, Mr. Leggett, I really appreciate what y'all are doing. Keep doing it.
Well, I think this discussion, I'd let's just do 2 or 3 shows just on this topic. let me say very quickly as we go to break here, I think we're dealing with some very, very smart children in today's world. And it blows me away. And part of that is connectivity. As you just pointed out, is how we monitor the connectivity and how we kind of, I guess, dish that out. So when we come back, I want to take some time and just talk about some of the programs you've got at Falcon's Children's Home and how they're going and some of those important issues related to that. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Joey Leggett, CEO of Falcon's Children's Home. Stay tuned.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
Every year, 7 million 911 calls are made in North Carolina.
911, what's your emergency?
Will you answer the call? Every second counts. You can be that lifeline. People in crisis look to us for assistance. We provide guidance and support until physical help can arrive at the scene. Join us and make a difference in our community. Be the calm in the chaos. Be the voice in the dark. It's the hardest career you'll ever love. Will you answer the call? Discover more at it.nc.gov/911careers.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking with Joey Leggett, Falcon's Children's Home, CEO. Joey, I want to kind of get in. We've talked about a lot of important stuff on, especially the first two segments. We really got into some things I'd love to have maybe a semester on. Maybe we could get into that later. But
I'll come back tomorrow if you want me to.
Yeah, we just started a school of understanding.
I just enjoy talking to this man. He couldn't talk to
and obviously you're very passionate about these things, and that's what I just love about having this conversation with you. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of get to is the different areas of what's happening, and I wanted to point this out. Falcon's Children's Home and Family Services, literally you guys have been around for over 110 years. I want to say that again. You've been around doing this, not you personally.
Right. You remember when open.
It's 110 years is a long time.
Yeah.
When we look at those, I want to touch on some of the areas that you're in, which is, of course, a New Life Christian adoptions, residential care, Tuberville, and that's one of the newer acquisitions. But a lot of those things. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of get you to just comment on, for all of these years, and off air, I think we talked about this a little bit a while ago, was the idea there's been this challenge, and there's been homeless children that dates back to over 110 years.
Yeah, in fact, the Harvest Train program we're going to have this year will be a true story about what they call the orphan train. That was in 1954. There were so many kids roaming the streets of New York City and Boston with the immigration and the financial crisis that hit America. There were just kids, they couldn't take care of all the kids. And so Charles Brace, I think it was a Presbyterian minister, was so moved by it, he started what they call Children's Aid Society, which was really like your first DSS. Mm-hmm. And he had this vision of Christian families in the Midwest taking these children off the streets of New York and Boston, I think even Philadelphia, and moving them into forever families. And they had children's homes back in those days and what they called almshouses, but they were all overcrowded and underfunded. So in the early 1900s, that's when your children's homes started coming up. And most of them came from faith-based organizations, the Methodist Home for Children, the Baptist Home for Children, Presbyterian. And of course, Falcon Children's Home came in 1909 out of that part of that time. So they realized we needed places for children. In fact, 200,000 children were transported out of those cities from 1854 to 1929. Now, the Children's Home opened in 1909 after a camp meeting service in the little town of Falcon, and they raised $832 and some odd cents to begin Falcon Children's Home. So I tell people later, here we are 10 years later, and we served over 20,000 children. Mm-hmm. So Falcon's been a very vital part. Now, there is a move by many in the child governance movement or whatever, saying that they don't like group homes. They really want all the kids in foster homes. And I don't totally disagree with that. I think if you can find a foster family, I'm for that. But for these older teenagers, that's not really going to happen. because there's not a lot of foster families that are going to take older teenagers. So group homes will always be needed and essential to a certain point, but they have restricted the funding a lot for group homes, new criteria, and how we're getting all that, but that's sort of how it's evolved in the last few years. In fact, that started last October, and we have more children now than we had even before they enacted the new rules, because again, as society continues to have issues, there's going to be more and more teens coming into care with the gang issues, with the drug issues, with those kind of things. But when I got to Falcon, it was basically a residential program. And I won't have time, but I could tell you how really a child would come up to me and I would see a need and I would say, we need to do something to address that. And the first program we started when I was there was the Mothers and Babies program. We had a young girl from Duplin County whose grandmother was looking after her 2 children. They were under 2 years of age. And she said, the county called and said, Mr. Leggett, could you take her 2 children? I said, we're only licensed for ages 2 to 21. We really wish you started a Mothers and Babies program. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. I'm just trying to get residential started. Mm-hmm. But when the young lady came to my office and begged me to start the program, I told our social workers, let's call our case managers, let's call the state and see if they'll allow us. They turned us down the first 4 times. But, I've learned something. You just have to, you really believe in something, you have to keep persevering. And finally, they said, we'll give you a trial program. Well, that's been 12 years ago. Now we got a $2.5 million campus across the road dedicated to a Mothers and Babies program. We already had a maternity home, but now we have a Mothers and Babies program. Those kids can go to our school on campus and graduate, so they still take care of their baby. We put them through parenting classes, nutritional classes, help them get a job when they leave. If you want to look at it from the business standpoint, that's the last person to be on welfare. They can get out and get a job, take care of their child. But if you look at it from a spiritual person, we're helping children. Really, they're children raising children. I took some flack when we started that program. Some people said, Mr. Leggett, are you encouraging girls to get pregnant? And I said, I don't think anybody's getting pregnant to come to Falcon Children's Home. We're just dealing with the crisis that's happened, and we're helping these young mothers. Hey, they chose to give life to their baby. That should mean something. So that was one of the first programs we started. And then I had another young lady who got saved or had a Christian experience at the children's home, and she came to me and said, Mr. Leggett, I don't really want to go to public school. I'm not a strong enough person to fight off peer pressure. Would you consider sending me to a private school? And I said, we can't. And then I thought about it. Let's try that. So we sent her to a private school. We paid for it. She graduated. Imagine my excitement when she graduated, top of her class. Imagine my excitement when she went to Emmanuel College and sang with Emmanuel College singers while I was on the board. So I said, if we could have a private school that focuses on foster kids, that focuses on what they're going through. Now, we lose $200,000 a year on that school, but we really don't lose money. To me, that's an investment. And so we started Falcon Christian Academy. And last year we had 12 graduates, 10 are in college or trade school this fall. So very excited about that. Then we got a call to go into South Carolina and really wasn't sure about that. But South Carolina's always been a big supporter of the Children's Home in North Carolina, and really the question came to my mind, how many children do we serve in North Carolina from South Carolina? And there was only 2 at that time. And I said, you know what? We need to open up a children's home there. The Free Will Baptists, South Carolina Free Will Baptists, decided they didn't want to run a children's home there anymore. And I met with them. We fell in love with each other. They did a great job running it for 40-some years. And they said, we would love for you guys to come in and take it over. And right now it's paying its way. It's found favor with South Carolina officials, and I'm very excited. In fact, I'm going to a funeral there today for one of the board members' mothers who's been very dedicated to working with us there in Turbyville. And then, of course, we talked about a human trafficking program and what's going on with that.
Yeah, and a lot of what I'm hearing you, and I'm listening to what you're saying and how it fits in today's society, and it seems to be right on point. But because what I'm hearing you say, we hear a lot about this word equity now, not necessarily equality, but equity. And I hear you saying that equity equals opportunity, and you are literally giving these mothers. When it comes to mothers and babies, you're giving them an opportunity. I mean, before, if they didn't have somebody like Falcon's Children's Home to go to, it may have been very tragic what happened. I mean, we're talking, and we've all seen this on the news, everything from trash cans right on around. Yeah. But yet a human life is in existence, and that human life moves forward because something happened and Falcon's Children's Home happened.
Well, everybody wants to take a stand for abortion or against abortion, but who's giving an alternative to those girls? I mean, you can't just say, well, don't kill your baby. You got to say, but here's a program you can go to where you can get your education. They can help you get a job. They help you teach you to raise your children. They'll feed you, clothe you, take care of you. I mean, I think that's the Christian thing to do in this life, is not just always be argumentative, but give a solution.
Yeah.
Like you said, it gives them equity. It gives them, hey, just because I had this child, and sometimes we've had a 12-year-old girl there with a baby before. So, and a lot of times it's not necessarily that they chose to get pregnant. Sometimes we've had even cases where someone may have been raped. So, but you can say to them, listen, this is a place. We're not just. Of course, we don't believe in abortion. But it's one thing just to argue and say I don't believe in it or I do believe in it, but it's another thing to give a real alternative, a real option, and that's what I feel like we're giving these girls. Hey, you're going through a difficult time. We understand that, but you gave that child life when you didn't have to. I mean, there's Christian girls having abortions. Some of these girls that come from the worst parts of the state sometimes on the other side of the track, and they're saying, that's my baby. I'm going to love my baby. We're going to honor that and help you raise that child. And we've marched every year on D.C. on Sanctity of Human Life Day in March. Never did I think in my lifetime I see Roe versus Wade overturned. But I'm not getting into the politics of that because this isn't a political thing with me. I don't want people, sometimes when we take stands, we get a little bit hateful in our tone.
Sure.
Of course, we're against abortion. But again, I'm not going to, put blame on someone who's had an abortion. I'm not going to, but we give a real alternative. We say here, instead of us just giving it lip service, this is something we're doing to make a difference.
I think you make a good point in the sense of choice, the idea of having that choice, but if you never have the opportunity or know that Falcon's Children's Home is there, that may be a choice you never considered because you didn't know the choice existed.
Right.
And that's what we're doing today in talking to you, is letting folks know that there is a choice there, and it's Falcon's Children's Home, and we're going to be publishing the number where they can reach out to you and others on your staff, that if they need that assistance and help. The comment, I will try to touch on this before we go to break, but the idea of the babies that are born there, some of those babies get adopted.
They do, but most of them don't. And that we always had the maternity home. So a lot of times those girls would have the babies and then they had to leave because we didn't have aftercare program. So sometimes those babies may get adopted or they may go back to an environment that was really not conducive to raising a child.
Right.
So that's why I think the Mothers and Babies program is so important. So you can come as a pregnant girl, have your baby, and then after you have your baby, we switch over to our Mothers and Babies program. But most of our babies, and there were some that was some of the argument against us starting this program was that, so you're not encouraging the kids to be adopted. Well, we can't encourage one way or the other, because we can't influence these girls to try to give your baby up because they can come back later and say they had an undue influence from us. That could be a conflict of interest. We'll guide them, and if they decide they want to put a baby up for adoption, we can't adopt the babies out from our program.
Right.
That's considered a conflict of interest with the state. We'll call in other adoption agencies to come in and meet with the girls. We tried to guide them, but we never tried to put pressure on them. But I think studies will show that when children get older, they're still looking for that biological parent. What we're doing now in this program is we are encouraging mothers to be mothers and how to raise their child. But if they want to put for adoption, we're for that too. So it kind of equals out between the two.
Looking at all the alternatives.
Right.
When we come back,
they give the mother the choice.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things is a kind of continuation of having that choice there. And what we're doing is obviously letting folks know that choice exists. When we come back from break, I want to touch on some of the fundraising things that's coming up very soon here. And the fact that Falcon's Children's Home is a not-for-profit organization. And a lot of folks may think, well, they get all kinds of this federal and state, but you have to survive based on donations and people stepping up. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Joey Leggett. We're talking about something that's probably the most important thing that exists in our society today, and that's our children. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Thank you for being with us today. We Should Know's on air. We're coming up on our last segment today. My name is JW Simmons, your host. We hope you've enjoyed what we've talked about today. And if you didn't enjoy it and it kind of aggravated you a bit, then help us do something about it. Help us support and continue to support Falcon's Children's Home and the mission that they're carrying out in communities throughout multiple states. Right here in North Carolina and South Carolina. Our guest is Joey Leggett. Joey, again, thank you for being with us. Got a lot of stuff to cover. I want to make it clear this last segment, a lot of things we're talking about and a lot of things that you do at Falcon is done, and you are a non-profit organization, not for profit, which just simply means that you have to depend on donations and other people caring enough about what you guys are accomplishing up there that they donate to that. And each year you have constantly, I guess, the opportunity folks can make a donation, but it seems like this time of the year people's mind is on, well, you know, how can I help in a greater way? How can I step out of maybe my church or some other organization? What can we do? And people are looking ways that they can help fundraising opportunities. You do something at Falcons, and this whole event deals with kind of focusing on the children at Falcons Children's Home and what they're doing. And so let's talk about what's coming up in November.
Yeah, it started in 1949. During that time, they were about to close the doors for Falcon Children's Home. They didn't get any state funding at that time. Now, we get state and federal funding now, but that basically meets their basic needs. For all the programs we do and anything extra, we are dependent upon donations and those sort of things. We cannot have a private school. We cannot have a mothers and babies program. We cannot have a go venture into South Carolina if we didn't have extra coming in. And not every kid gets state funding. We take kids with no payment, and I feel like we should always do that. And in order for us to do that, we have to be dependent upon charitable giving, and I appreciate that so much. But back in 1949, I got the first letter said, come bring your ham hocks and your collard greens. We need some food and we need some money to keep the doors open. Yeah. So it was called a Santa Claus train, but they changed that in the late 50s to Harvest Train. So it's been going on since 1949, except for the last 2 years. Because of COVID, we did not have it. Mm-hmm. So this will be our first Harvest Train presentation over 3 years. And I think people are just yearning for it. They realize now how much they missed it. But on November 22nd at 10:30, at the J. Coburth Auditorium in Falcon, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I don't know the exact address, but if you go to Falcon, you can't miss it. It's the biggest building in Falcon. And Falcon's about a half mile long. But anyway, we would love for you to be our guest. And it's free of charge, but we would ask you if you can to bring a commodity, canned good, or anything to help us in our kitchen. Or if you want to bring a monetary donation, we'd accept that too. Mm-hmm. But the kids started back in 1949, they'll do a program. And it's not just a program, it's a production. There'll be interpretive dancing. There'll be a choir singing. We're going to have a live singing Christmas tree this year. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. In fact, that one year somebody said, you can go to Myrtle Beach and pay to see a program will be no better than this program. Our kids really, we don't make the kids be in the program. Mm-hmm. They all volunteer. They want to be in the program. But we do a program and say thank you to everybody who gives to Falcon throughout the year. So we really are dependent upon this program. This program alone usually helps us fund our school. Mm-hmm. to go that tide of, I said $200,000 earlier, that we need to make up the difference. So we'd encourage you to come to the Harvest Train program. Again, November the 22nd at 10:30 at the J. Coburth Auditorium at Falcon. If you can't make that part of the program, we're going to redo an encore presentation that night at 7 o'clock, again at J. Coburth Auditorium. Because if you're working, you can't get off work and you come back at 7 o'clock. But we would love for you to come be our guest. It'll seat about 2,000 people. It usually fills up. The night one probably won't fill up as much as the morning one will. So if you want to come see that program, we'd love for you to come see what we're doing at Falcon, see our kids. That's the way we say thank you. It doesn't cost you anything, but if you'll make a donation, we'd love for you to come make a donation to that.
2,000 people at Falcon is a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. It's
I mean, you know you're in a crowd.
Yeah, it's the only time there's a traffic jam in Falcon.
Yeah.
Unless a cow got caught in the middle of the road somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the things that happens during that period of time in listening to you and looking at some of the things you've done in the past is folks can bring items that can be used. And I want to remind folks, and we'll put this on the TV side where folks can see it, but you have a list of items that I guess that children can use. And you have it kind of laid out and it's formatted where if somebody says, well, for example, maybe they've got children, they've outgrown something in its perfect condition. And how many folks probably has we're talking today is thinking, well, I bought something the other day and the tag's still on that particular, I don't know, it could be a T-shirt, it could be a sweatshirt.
I think my wife did that this past week.
I mean, constantly you see that. But instead of letting that go to waste and they don't know what to do with it, they can actually donate it. You got a thrift store there that these children can use this stuff.
Yeah, we do. Commodities are a big thing, and this started hoping people bring commodities to the children's home to get them through the year, and so same thing. And we have a commodities calendar is what you're talking about on our site, falconchildren'shome.org or falconchildren'shome.com. You can download it. And basically, to summarize what's on the commodities calendar, what you need at home, we need at the children's home. If you need trash bags at home, we need trash bags. We need, if you need shampoo at home, we need shampoo. If you need soap, we need soap. Imagine your home plus 85 children, plus counting the house parents' children, really 100 children. So those are the kind of things we need. And generally, Harvest Train gets us through about May or June before all that stuff runs out. So that helps us with our finances, but also helps us have different things for our children. But I'd encourage you to look at that calendar, but just to put it in a nutshell, think of things that you need at your house. Food, of course, canned goods, we need that. But anything you could use at your house, we need that triple it or double it at least.
I mean, it's things like alarm clocks, shower curtains. The list goes on and on. But it literally, as you just said, I think it's the best way to explain it. If you need it, they're going to need it because it's basic human needs to maintain, I guess, a clean, respectable lifestyle.
Yeah, paper towels. I mean, anything that you need at your home, we're going to need and double or triple it because we got 9 to 10 kids on the cottage. So imagine how much they go through in a year.
I want you to speak to churches and civic clubs, Joey. I want you to kind of give us what if you were, and I know you get invited a lot of times to go to churches or civic clubs to speak, but if you've got an opportunity now maybe to speak to a lot of people. So tell us what you would say to those civic clubs when it comes to needs. Obviously, they can donate some of these things and go to the website. The other thing is they can make a donation. I mean, it could be small, it could be large, and I know you've had a few quite large donations that's come in, and you've told me before as a result of this show. So I want you to make sure that that we touch on those, and I personally want to thank people for donating to Falcon Children's Home, and I'm going to let you pick it up from there. Yeah,
and again, JW, thank you for allowing us to be here. And I won't say names because I don't know if I have permission to say names, but there are certain people in Sampson County I know have given to Falcon Children's Home because of this program pretty sizable donations, and I appreciate that so much. I promise you it goes to the care of children. There is no other thing it goes to. But you can give to Falcon Children's Home. You can go online and give to Falcon Children's Home. We're part of our PayPal account, or you can write a check, or you can come in person and make a donation, or your credit card through PayPal. But any kind of donations we certainly can use. It helps us throughout the year to be able to provide what we need for our children. And I think you will find out that if you ever, we'd encourage you to come visit the campus. We'd love for you to come make a donation, visit the campus and see what's going on. It's like a little city. And I'm so proud of that because it's us doing things to make these kids' lives better. But we have a choir group that travels. I was at the Bethany Oasis Church of God Sunday with our choir. If you want to schedule us to come to your church, we have a program now. I used to do like a message, but I realized people didn't want to hear my messages anymore. So we actually have an interactive social media program now. I'm just picking, but I really want the word of choir sings throughout the program. We have social media for all of our programs and now tied in with scripture. And I think you could talk to where we've been the last 4 weeks. We've just started this new process. I like it a lot better. It gets the word out. But if you're a church organization, we are a Christian organization and we are 501c3. I don't know of anything, and I know I'm a little prejudiced with this, but I don't know of anything that's making a bigger difference right now than what we're doing at Falcon Children's Home for this area. And we get kids from Cumberland County, Sampson County, Harnett County, Johnston County, Duplin County, Bladen County, Onslow County, Pitt County, Scotland County, and as far west as Union County and all other counties in between. But most of our kids come from Cumberland County, Sampson County, Harnett County, and Johnston County. And lately, right many from Duplin County. So we serve this area. So if you are part of a church or part of a civic organization, please consider us as a charity to give to. And many do. Many civic organizations do. I'm very proud of that. In fact, I used to be in Kiwanis here in Clinton before I moved to Falcon, and I was a very good part of that. And I spoke to the Kiwanis Club here, or the Lions Club, I think, actually, here at the country club about 2 months ago. Had the best time there, and they have been supporting us. So again, remember us. We've got a lot of good friends here in Sampson County. But I really want you to think about what you would donate to this year, especially getting to the end of the year. And again, I'm prejudiced, but I think we're making a big difference in the lives of the children we serve and the surrounding community.
And again, each and every donation is important. I know a lot of churches and different folks and organizations have donations that come to their churches, and it could be, as you said, anything from paper towels, or it could be furniture. But as far as furniture, I guess you would kind of want to know beforehand, so you know if it's something you could use. But large items, small items, it doesn't matter. And also they can reach out to your thrift store and to your folks that does that. Yeah. And we're going to try to get the number on the screen here so they can see that and say, look, I'm fixing to move this out and I'm literally going to throw it away. Is it something you could use? And that would be important.
Absolutely. And the thrift store, I'm glad you brought that up. We have a thrift store in Dunn, North Carolina. The address escapes. We moved it to a bigger store just recently. It does real good business there. So we have a thrift store, but our kids can come get anything they want for free out of that thrift store if it's closed and those kind of things. But furniture is a big selling item at the thrift store. And a lot of people love to come shop at our thrift store knowing the proceeds go to our school. It goes to our school to help our kids' education. Some of the kids work there to make some part-time income. So we can definitely use anything you feel like donating. Again, if you've got furniture, clothing, anything you think a child could use, we would love for you to bring it to Falcon. I promise you the kids get first choice. If they don't need it, and a lot of times kids don't want to wear what we want to wear, they want to wear something new brand, then we will put it at a thrift store and sell it, and the money goes back to the school at Falcon Children's Home.
Joe, I want to thank you for being with us today. We look forward to having you back. There's a lot going on. If you want to partner with Falcon's Children's Home, call Joey Leggett and we'll work out something. They're in need of a lot of items that maybe you might even throw away that can really help another human being. Stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you again next week, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.